Welcome to Vintage McCoy. I'm Rick Brown, and I am with my new friend, Eric Metaxas. Stick around. You're going to have a fun ride.
Kairos, this is your moment. Liberty is not man's idea, it's God's idea. We must participate in the public square. This is a moment in time that will define history as we know it. The furtherance of America as we know it.
That's a powerful gift, freedom. And we're not going to bow to tyranny.
This isn't me standing, it's us. This is the moment for the body of Christ.
We pray that there would be an awakening and a revival in the nation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Welcome back to Vintage McCoy. I'm here with Eric Metaxas, and we're going to be talking about his new book. And actually, Eric and I are just having fun.
We're having fun.
About
I'm
all kinds
so
of stuff.
glad Rob McCoy could not be here because we're having fun. I've already had fun with Rob. I love Rob.
I know you've done that.
He knows
for years.
that. That's why if I really love you, my love language is to make fun of you publicly, to say something disparaging. That's how you know I love you.
Well, there's a lot of love flowing then.
Well, it's true. We tease each other, so that's kind of. Those are my best friendships, is where we just tease each other.
Well, we want to talk about aspects of your new book,
Yeah.
Fish Out of Water,
Yeah.
which I'm just excited about. And you're going to be with us all weekend, and we're getting the podcast. We're going to ring you out.
I'm thinking if I got to come to Thousand Oaks, is that what it's called?
Yes.
I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a joy for me to get to know, you and to get to know Rob better and to hang out here. It's fun for me. So I'm actually really thrilled that I'm here. Thank you. Yeah.
We left off, and you said you wanted to unpack some more things about a supernatural experience that led to your conversion through a dream.
Yeah.
And you've written a book, Miracles.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about the divine nature of God. He's supernatural. All through the Bible, He has the ability uniquely for each individual to have the keys to the heart to open it up. So take off with that.
A lot of people don't really, even people who think they're Christians or are Christians, don't really believe it, really.
Yes.
And I want to say, look, I know that I pray all the time and I don't hear from God or I don't get what I'm looking for or whatever. Okay? But I will tell you, God has spoken miraculously to me through a number of things, a number of times, and they're not, I literally, this just happened last weekend. I was preaching up here in California, Northern California, and my wife's mom passed away. Sunday morning we woke up, she was 96, and my wife says, my mom died. And I thought, wow. We kind of saw it coming, this and that, but why I'm bringing this up is that a few minutes later, my sister-in-law calls up and says, I got to tell you about the vision God gave me last night.
Wow.
Now, she's in Wilmington, Delaware. Grandma was in New Jersey in her home. Joanne, my sister-in-law, tells my wife that last night I was in bed, and I don't know if I was like awake or if I was dreaming, but I had a profound vision. And if you have like a real vision from God, it's not like daydreaming. It's like seeing a TV screen, okay? This has happened to me a handful of times. But when it happens, it's not kind of like, hey, gee, what was that? It's clear that it's God, right?
It's not just bad pizza.
So, no, it could be, but no. So my sister-in-law, this is right after we find out. I mean, it's a week ago. My mother-in-law passed. Okay. So my sister-in-law calls up Suzanne, my wife, and tells her that last night I was in bed. I had a vision that I walked in the vision. I walked into Mom's bedroom. I took her hand, and I said, Mom, it's Joanne. And Mom looks at me, and Joanne says to her mother in the vision, Mom, I have Jesus with me. Do you see him? And my mother-in-law looks up and says, yes. And then Joanne says, so Mom, I'm going to leave you with Jesus now. He is going to take care of you. Is that okay? And she says, okay, bye. Now, think of the mercy of God that he would give my sister-in-law this vision for the whole family to know, is Mom with God? Is she with Jesus? Whatever. You know, she was kind of like a Catholic who didn't really talk about her faith, but we believed that she believed, but it was kind of one of those things. The sweetness of God to give Joanne this vision, but here's the punchline, and God always does this. When it was over, Joanne looks at the clock, 2:54 a.m. That is, in fact, when her mother died. Like, wow. We know that this was real, and that God gave her this totally miraculous. She didn't see Jesus in the dream, in the vision. She said to her mother, "I'm with Jesus. Do you see him?" "Yes. He's going to take you now. He's going to take care of you." "Okay, bye." I mean, mind-blowing. Now, I know my sister-in-law didn't make this up. It doesn't sound to me like just like something she dreamt or something. She said it was real. And she knew when it was over, Mom has just gone to be with Jesus. It wasn't kind of like, what was that? And then she finds out. She knew that this was real. This stuff happens. Now, if it didn't happen to you or it didn't happen, I'm just here to say there is no doubt when you walk with Jesus, you will experience things like this. Some people experience a whole lot. I've got friends that, you know, they're hearing from God and, you know, and some people experience it very little. Look, the heroes that I wrote about, Bonhoeffer, Wilberforce, they don't talk about this kind of stuff. These are profound Christians who didn't experience this, but their whole life was given over to Jesus. So it's not like you want to be running after visions and dreams and miracles, but oftentimes that is what God does. And that's what God did in my conversion at age 25. And if people have tracked, you know, with what I was talking about in the previous conversation we had, there are basically three things that you need to know for the dream to make sense. So the first thing is, I said I was raised in this Greek environment. In fact, my father always would look at the chrome fish on the back of a car. This is in the 70s, right? But he'd say, like, you know what that is? And I was like, no. You know, he said, well, that's the Christian symbol that the early Christians would use that symbol, and it's a Greek word. A lot of people don't know this. Mm-hmm. It's the Greek word for fish is ichthys. Mm-hmm. And the word ichthys is an acronym, Isus Christos Theos Imon Sotir, or Isus Christos Theos Iou Sotir. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, our Savior. So the early Christians used the secret symbol because they knew that it stood for Jesus Christ, the Son of God, our Savior. So I see the fish, and I realize, okay, Jesus Christ, Son of God, our Savior. But my father's just psyched because it's a Greek word. He gets to teach me this Greek thing, right?
It's just like big fat Greek wedding.
It is, right? So then, growing up in Danbury, Connecticut, fishing was like a big thing for me. That was like my hobby. You know, I was in a bass fishing tournament when I was 16. But, you know, you don't look at a city slicker like me from Yale and think like, bass fishing, really? Yeah, that's what I was into that stuff. So that was a big thing for me. Ice fishing, fly fishing for trout, for everything, panfish. Like, it was just what I loved to do, was my main hobby. So if you say, who were you at age 25 when you had this dream? Those are two kind of major pieces of my life. But the third piece is when I went off to Yale, what I call the life of the mind, trying to figure out what is the meaning of life. Even when I was just an English major and I didn't know what I believed exactly, I was some kind of a Christian, but I was trying to figure out the larger meaning of life, or who is God. And I came up with this kind of New Age idea. If you're an undergraduate, you come up with ideas like this. And I kind of thought, you know, I took a course on Freud or on Jung, and they have this idea. And for people who are listening, if this doesn't make sense, don't worry, because it's dumb anyway. But I'm just going to tell you that they have this idea of like that a model of the soul is like we have the conscious mind, and then beneath the conscious mind is the unconscious, right? So that's fine. And what Jung says, and this is very New Age, he says, well, the collective unconscious of all of humanity, that's God. That's the divinity. That's Godhead or whatever. It's like this kind of New Age energy force God version, right? So I kind of thought, well, maybe that's what all religions are getting at. And I came up with this image, like a literary image of a frozen lake. And I thought maybe the goal of all religions is to drill through the conscious mind, through the ice, to reach the water, which is the collective unconscious, which is God. Maybe that's what all spirituality is. And there's some truth to that in a way, but it was just this New Age idea, and I kind of came up with it. I didn't know it was New Age. I'm trying to figure out the meaning of life. But it was kind of like, okay, maybe that's what it's all about. So of course it doesn't mean anything, and I live my life, and it doesn't comfort me or anything, but it was kind of an idea in the back of my mind. And when I moved back in with my parents at age 24, I'm going through this really difficult time. They're looking at me like, why are you back here? Like, you went to Yale. We didn't get to go to college. We didn't get to grow up in America where we had food on the table every night. What's your problem? And I was, floundering around and whatever. And during this period, my friend Ed Tuttle is sharing his faith with me. And at the end of about a year, I think I was just beginning to open up to maybe God is real, or maybe I'm willing to be open to it, but I have no concept of if it is real or if it is, I don't know what I think. So the Lord speaks to me in a dream. And in the dream, I'm standing on a frozen lake, Candlewood Lake in Danbury, Connecticut, and we're ice fishing with a friend or whatever, and obviously it's winter, and in Connecticut, I mean, the ice is, super white, and there's snow, and it's a brilliant sun and blue sky. It's one of those gorgeous winter days. And I look down at the hole in the ice, and there's a fish kind of sticking its snout out of the hole like it's there, which does not happen if you've ever ice fished. And so I reach down, and I pick up the fish, and I hold it up into the sunlight, and it's a pickerel or a pike, and it has, kind of bronze coloring, but in the brilliant sunlight, so bright on this beautiful day, it looked golden. And I'm looking at it in the dream. I'm holding up this big fish, and it looks golden. And then I realize in the dream, it is golden. It is made of gold, but it's alive. It is like a fairy tale. It's a golden fish. And then suddenly in the dream, I know God is saying to me, you wanted to drill through the ice to reach inert water, this kind of like God force or something. And I wanted to give you something better. I wanted to give you my son, your Savior, Jesus Christ. And I realized in the dream that this fish is Ichthus, the fish, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, our Savior, this golden fish in this dream, in this fairy tale dream. And I realized in the dream, it's over. My search is over. I have found what I didn't think you could find. Jesus is my answer. I was looking for some God something, and God says, no, I'm going to one-up you with your own dopey symbol system, and I'm going to blow your mind.
He met you right where you were.
And he met me exactly where I was, using this Greek word and this thing and my fishing, and then the life of the mind and the silly idea, and he met me right there. And in the dream, I was flooded with joy. I knew Jesus is Lord. This is real. This is true. I was just flooded with joy. I knew that I had Jesus, that it was over. And I woke up. I told my friend the next day at work, he's like, what do you think that means? I said, it means I have accepted Jesus. I never would have said that before. Like, it was...
So what did Ed say?
And I said, well, we're still friends. It's 3 years. And it just changed everything. So now I'm having fellowship with him every day, and I'm hearing the Bible, and I just was growing like, crazy. But it was that dream where the Lord spoke to me. I call it the secret vocabulary of the heart, that it wouldn't have made sense to anybody else, but it made exact sense to me. And let's face it, God in the dream proves that he knew me better than I knew myself. Like, to sum up my life in a magical dream, how do you not just go, okay, Lord, I get it. You're God. I'm not. Thank you. And now I'll give you I'll give you the remainder of my time. Like, it's all yours, Lord. I've been not doing such a great job with my career or anything, so thank you. And let's walk together here, and you lead me from now on. But it changed absolutely everything. And the book Fish Out of Water, this is the culmination. So I didn't want. I wrote the book Fish Out of Water: Search for the Meaning of Life, principally for believers to have something to give to non-believers who don't, maybe they wouldn't read a really Christian book. They'd just be, that's not for me. And look, the book is fun. There's a lot of funny, crazy stories. It's nutty. And if you want to know kind of where I got my weird sense of humor and stuff, it's all in there. And I think it's entertaining. People have said that it's a great read. But the culmination of it is this Jesus dream. And I feel like if you're going to give it to somebody who is, not interested in God or whatever, just don't give them the punchline, whatever. Just say, I think you'll enjoy this book. And
there you go.
People that are not Christians or conservatives or whatever have loved the book. There's nothing political, or it's not a Christian book, it's a book. But the ending of it tells you how God got a hold of me.
Yeah. I love that phrase that, you know, a biography, we're the hero of our story, but a testimony is Jesus is the hero of the story. Isn't that, I mean, that'll preach. And and I think it's so great because that's where the book takes you. It takes you to Jesus in this experience. And so the supernatural aspect of those things, first I have to ask you, because I'm dying to, you said I have this terrible dead-end job with it. What are you doing? What are you doing for work?
This is God's
Who is
idea
Eric
of comedy.
Metaxas now? New York Times best-selling author. What were you doing?
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, you got to understand, it's kind of like wanting to be an actor or something. You get a job like as a waiter or whatever. You don't. That's not who you are. But it's like you got to make money, so you get a job. What can you do with an English degree from Yale? Other than nothing.
You never wanted to teach?
No. I never had any ambition to teach or give of myself in any way. I just thought, I want to be a writer. So I guess, how did this really go? I guess, so I moved back in with my parents, and I don't have a clue what I'm going to do. I mean, I was so lost, people don't know. I mean, I'm lost now, but my hand is in the hand of the man from Galilee, so I'll be okay. But I just was so, and the only thing that I had been able to do, like in the summer, I think it was the previous summer, some of the summer jobs, by the way, in this book, people are going to die when you read what I did in these summers. You will die, I'm telling you. One summer I worked with a Nazi painter and a racist guy, and they both were at the KKK gathering in Danbury, Connecticut, whatever. They came in the morning, we're kind of like having our coffee,
and you're the
getting ready.
Son of German
and I'm sitting there like, what? What? Like, wait till my friends at Yale hear about this. So, but I mean, I write about these crazy stories. But the one summer that I was in New York, I got some kind of like literary internship, which pays nothing. So my parents were like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, so how's it a job if you don't get paid? So, of course, I had to get another job. And what can you do? And somebody said, well, why don't you try proofreading at some of these law firms will pay like, $10 or $11 an hour, but it's like, weird hours and whatever. I was like, that's great. So this is like 1983. And so I got a job as a proofreader at these law firms. And it's just mind-numbing work. But, if you have an English degree from Yale, like, it's easy to do. So when I went to Danbury, Connecticut, I thought, what can I do? And I look in the paper, there's like a proofreading job at Union Carbide in Danbury, Connecticut. They're world headquarters of this international chemical conglomerate.
So now, it's a technical manual.
This is like, like a nightmare. Yep. But I needed money, so I go there, and it is a totally corporate environment. It was my idea of hell. It was horrible. Yeah. I was in a cubicle like a quarter of a mile from the nearest window. Like it was this kind of, building in the middle of nowhere, and it just a nightmare, corporate. And God brought me to that place so that I could meet the graphic designer Ed Tuttle, who led me to faith, who walked me through. And I just think, look at God, what He does. He brings you so low because He loves you. Mm-hmm. He let me get to a place where I was open to God, just a bit. Yeah. But just enough that He was able to reach me, get me away from my friends. I'm living in this miserable situation with my parents and whatever. And He was able to reach me, and it just changed everything. But I mean, I laugh. I mean, all this is in the book, the Union Carbide and I always say it was kind of like, it was Gehenna. It was really not a fun job for me, but it's what got me to the whole point of my life, so.
And so we were sharing in the last one, you came to Jesus through a very supernatural dream. It was so perfectly custom designed, every detail, to meet Eric right where he was.
And that's what blew my mind. Yeah. You're like,
so detailed.
Who could do that? That's God. And I got to tell you, because my brain was not going to like concoct something on its own to lead me to Jesus. Like I don't get that. No, it was incredible, and my life was changed overnight. I say it's like going to sleep single and waking up married. It was like totally, totally different. Yeah. And I stopped sleeping with my girlfriend. Instantly. We'd been together for 3 years, and I was like, oh, now I know. No more. I want God. I want God. I want God. I was changed. Yeah. I knew that this is it. This is what I'm looking for, and it's real. It's not a philosophy. This is real. God is real, and He has led me in miraculous ways. The next book, I probably won't read it for a couple of years, but the sequel to this book tells what happened to me after this, and there are just a series of amazing things where God led me miraculously. And if you read it, it's hard to argue with. I mean, I don't know what people would make of it. They might not like it. Sometimes people don't like stuff, and so they just ignore it. But I don't think anybody could say I'm making it up.
Yeah. For me, my conversion was very supernatural too, and we were talking a little bit. It would be good for us because we come from just a first century New Testament Christianity that sees the supernatural work, dreams, visions,
healings.
Everything from, if you really believe Genesis to Revelation, the God that we love, that loves us, and then we just responded to that love, is supernatural. And we were touching on things that you said. If I had the dream and I was from Iran or Iraq, it would seem okay.
Yeah, people would say, like, all these Muslims are having these dreams, they see Jesus, whatever. Look, God's going to do what He's going to do. It'll always challenge some people, and it'll always challenge some religious people. Hey, tough luck. I mean, God is God. I didn't choose to have the dream.
Yeah.
I just went to sleep, and God chose to speak to me that way. So, yeah.
And we were involved with ministry in Iran where these supernatural dreams and visions were happening, and we got invited through a series of events. They couldn't, obviously, they're under police watch. They started house churches. They've only been saved 3 months, 6 months, and now they're doing a house church. So they have no biblical understanding. They have no pastoral care. They've been Muslim their whole life. And talk about the trouble that they had. And so we got involved, and somebody told us about them that they wanted a pastor's conference, but they have to get out of the country. So we chartered with our mission budget. We chartered a plane, flew 122 Iranians out of Iran for their Muslim New Year's to Istanbul, because that's a normal thing, that it seemed normal.
They're allowed to do that.
They're allowed to do that. And we did this pastor's conference for 5 days. Now, they've never been baptized because they're not going to get baptized in public. If you convert somebody, I mean, it is Muslim law that if you convert a person from Islam to Christianity, it's a capital offense. I mean, you can be executed or imprisoned. And so we're baptizing these Iranians in a kiddie pool on top of a hotel roof.
Oh, man.
But all of their stories were so incredibly supernatural. And when you have that experience and you've seen, I've been walking with Jesus for 36 years, and the supernatural that is a regular part, it's not a miracle, a moment. Even if you look at the book of Acts,
right.
It's over 30 years, and there's about 30 miracles. So basically it's about a miracle a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like a miracle a moment.
Right.
The supernatural God intervenes.
Oh, there's
and
no
that's
doubt.
been your story, right?
And we don't get to choose. I have friends that do healing and deliverance, and it's just obvious that they have a particular gift and that it brings people to Jesus. And it's just, now that doesn't happen to me, but we have to be open to what God does. And I think obviously it has to be biblical.
Yes.
It has to lead people toward Jesus, not toward some like angel spirit guide or some crazy thing like that, because that's called the occult. Yeah. But it is real, and it really does reach some people. I mean, for me, as I was saying before, I was so intellectually gummed up that I needed God to break through in a miraculous way. I mean, I see it now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have always been just spinning and wondering, and it had to be kind of definitive. So,
amen.
Yeah.
So Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? I mean, he's the same Jesus. You fast forward, you're saved. You meet the love of your life. You guys have been married 25 years or so. Tell me.
I met my wife in church.
Oh, okay, she was
a Christian. In fact, I met all three of my wives. Just kidding. I've preached at Times Square Church in New York City, where I met Suzanne. David Wilkerson's church.
Yeah.
And so when I preached there, I said, I met my wife right in this church. I said, in fact, I met all three of my wives right in this church. People are like, what? No, so Suzanne and I have been married. It's going to be 25 years in October, and Yeah, we did meet at Times Square Church in New York City, and Suzanne, she was in the cosmetics industry, and then after we got married, she ran a crisis pregnancy center, or pregnancy, whatever it's called, in Manhattan for 12 years. So, you know, we were in that whole world. And I don't know, you know, how I would be able to do what I do and live the life I live if I did not have Suzanne. I mean, I think, because, you know, it's gotten challenging, especially in the last few years, to stand for truth in a world that's gone loony. Mm-hmm. So I feel particularly blessed that I have Suzanne.
Amen. And that's, I mean, unless you have that soulmate when the whole world's coming against you, because you're standing for truth, you have a radio program, your writings, and what kind of, what is some of the most vicious attacks that is coming, Eric Metaxas?
Other than Rob McCoy not showing up for this interview,
because he totally ditched you. He just ditched you.
No, I tell you, it's kind of crazy. I have lost friends, and I will tell you, if you know me, nothing was ever more important to me than friendship. If you're not a Christian, if you're what, I will just love you. You're my friend. So to have a couple of friends completely like decide that I no longer want to be your friend after 35 years or something, it's incomprehensible to me. But you realize how, I mean, I have to look at it from their point of view. They're really hurting. They're so lost and so bitter and so whatever. And so I just love them even, you know, once I get over the fact that, because it hurt me, you know, it hurts. But people are so divided. And I have to say that I know it's irrational. It doesn't make any rational sense why people have given themselves permission to despise Donald Trump. I mean, look, there's a lot of people you could dislike. You could say, you know, I don't like he does this and da-da-da. Great. But to give yourself permission to despise someone, you really have to kind of break that down for me logically. Like, why are you giving yourself permission to do that? Because you didn't do that with President Obama. President Obama was like insanely liberal on all these policies. He looked like a good family man and whatever, but he did things that were antithetical to what I think a president should do. He was pro-abortion, but you don't say like, I despise him. If you love God, you can say that I despise his policies, I despise his presidency, but you know, the human being is a human being made in God's image. So when people give themselves permission to hate, whether it's to hate Trump or to hate people that have supported him, they never have been able to, and I don't think it's possible, give a rational explanation. Because first of all, as a Christian, we are simply not given permission to hate. Right. It's not okay. But people have given themselves permission. They love hating. It feels so good to be morally superior and to find somebody who is the focus of your hate and all your problems are because of, you know, that's not biblical. I'll tell you straight up, it's just not biblical. And the fact that Trump was so pro life, I thought. He was the most pro-life president in the history of the Republic. He made Reagan look like Carter. I mean, it was just amazing to me how pro-life he was. And people say, oh, that's cynical. He's just, it's like, I don't even care if it was cynical. If you do what you think the people want, you are their representative. And I don't think it was cynical at all. But I'm saying, but even if it were, how do you fault somebody for legislation and for a posture that is for the unborn lives? Like, how's that a bad thing? I don't know. He stood up magnificently for Israel. He understood the basic stuff that every American should understand, like we need to have borders. And if we have really strong borders, then we can welcome people in and we know who's coming in. This is like, it's so basic to even have to explain it. It's preposterous. But there are people that they've just thrown their brains out and they just, it's all emotion. And, you know, it's kind of like saying, well, I want free college, I want this. And, you know, you want to say, okay, so who's going to pay for that?
It's always who's going to pay for it.
And they just go, like there's no actual
money.
response.
We're just going to print money.
Yeah, we're going to print money. We're going to devalue our dollars the way that the Nazis, I mean, the way the Weimar, you know, Republic devalued the Deutschmark. And, you know, we'll all be wondering, how did this all happen? It happened because people threw their common sense out the window and just decided their emotions led them to do all this stuff. So it's been really hard for me, but I have to say that you can't write about people like Bonhoeffer and then when tough stuff comes say like, well, I'm going to look the other way because I want my books to sell, or I want to, you know, be on the New York Times bestseller list, or I want to, you know, you have to do what you think God is calling you to do. And God forbid I would do anything else. So to have people, including many Christians, somehow become hostile to me, I love people that are my ideological enemies. If you disagree with me, I still want to love you and pray for you. And I have not spoken ill of people, even though they've spoken ill of me publicly. I just don't want to get into that. I don't want to do that. It's just not... I really do take friendship seriously. So these people that I've been friends with over the years, I'm not going to become your enemy because, maybe we won't, do stuff together or whatever, but I'm not going to get into that public fight like that. I just don't want to do that. It just doesn't appeal to me. I just want to do what I do, and I honestly trust God with the results. I can't really... we can't be so calculating that we are afraid to do what we think is right. We have to do what we think is right and just trust God's got the results. I'm not going to worry about it.
And on that note, Eric, it's rather cliche, but I think cliches often come from well-worn truths in the sense that you have to have the skin of a rhinoceros and a tender heart, and usually people get thin-skinned and hard hearts. So we want to have that tough skin and keep our hearts tender. But that being said, with this season of hostility, I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Right.
In the nation.
Well, nobody has. We've not. The closest you could come to it would be, the craziness in the late '60s and the anti-war stuff. Yes. Yeah. But this is worse than that on many levels because we have really lost the, I guess, let's put it this way, things really do change. Social media has changed how we can communicate, and the nastiness that people, the way they speak about each other, that really has changed in a way, and we're kind of calling each other out, publicly and saying mean things, and I think that's we're in a strange place, and so it's a challenge, I think, for us as Christians who love this country. Like, where do we go from here? Well, one thing we have to know, God is with us if we're with Him. If we say, Lord, whatever you want, whatever you ask me to do, I will do it, well, then the Lord's with us. And whatever happens, that changes everything. So my goal is not to save America. I shouldn't say that. I want to save America, but my ultimate goal is to obey God. Yeah. And if everything here goes down,
of the results.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And so, but I do think that God wants us to work to save the republic. I do believe that firmly, and I'm not one of these Christians. There are many Christians who kind of act like, well, it's all going to hell, and that's fine with me. Let it burn. No, that's not God. That's a fatalistic attitude. Jesus didn't say, let's go to the cross. No, He didn't want to go to the cross, because unless you're insane, you don't want to suffer and die. But you say, nevertheless, Father, thy will be done. So if it turns out that we lose the republic, God will give us the strength to face that. But we don't say, let's throw it out, we don't care. How can we not care? If you care about human beings, which God commands us to care for the poor and to care for others, you want America to be strong. You want America to be free. If you care about kids in the ghetto, you have to care about speaking against socialism, speaking against BLM Marxism. Those things are the enemies of the poor in urban communities. Right. So you can look woke and look like you care. You can virtue signal all day long and be on board with critical race theory and all this different stuff. But if you
as you have private security and live in your mansion, right?
To me, if you actually care about people, you have an obligation before God to speak against socialist policies, big government policies, critical race theory, cultural Marxism, BLM. These things are the enemies of urban minority communities. And some people could disagree with me, but I don't care. I know that. And because I actually care about urban minority communities, I will never shut up about this. Yes. And I say the same thing about the election or whatever it is. We have to be free in America to speak the truth. And God commands us to speak the truth. So if you just want all your friends to like you and you want to be cool, you're not serving God. You have to do what's right, and He will worry about who likes you and doesn't like you. Bonhoeffer was very lonely. A lot of church people turned their backs on him. They thought, what's he doing? He's getting involved in the military intelligence, and what is he doing? This man of God getting involved in this weird stuff. He answered to the audience of one, God. God, what God calls me to do. And if I'm wrong, that's between me and the Lord. But I'm not going to worry about other people. And I think part of what I think that God has called me to do is to be a voice for people that are, there's confusion. And I want to help them negotiate this weird time, to be able to walk through it and to try to do the right thing, try to speak the truth. Because a lot of people have just said, I'm out, I'm gonna preach the gospel. And my attitude is like, what gospel are you preaching? If you're not talking about these things that are going to affect people, what are you doing? Like you're preaching an empty gospel. You have to preach a gospel that sometimes gets political. I mean, Bonhoeffer got totally political, and Wilberforce got totally political because they said, I got to care about the slaves. These are God's creatures, and that's going to take politics to fight that. I'm not going to say, well, I don't care about that. Hey, maybe they'll go, maybe, in slavery they'll find Jesus, and I'm just going to preach the gospel. You have to care about human beings. When Jesus says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, if you were on a slave ship, wouldn't you want some Christians to get real political on your behalf? If you were in a boxcar going to Treblinka or Auschwitz, wouldn't you want some German Christians who say they believe in Jesus, who defeated death? Wouldn't you want them to be courageous in that faith and speak up for you? Well, so what about the unborn today? What about young men that are struggling with same-sex attractions? Is nobody going to speak the truth so that that young man can hear something that says, I don't need to go down that path? Are we so afraid? Are we so selfish that we're not willing to sacrifice anything for those people? Sometimes that involves getting what looks like political. But it's like, we didn't choose that. The world chose that. They make these things issues. And to respond is not to say I'm making an idol of politics. And so many people have said that to me. Like, I mean, people who've read my Bonhoeffer book, and they kind of read it through this like woke filter, and they think, well, it's obvious Trump is Hitler 2.0, and how come you're not standing up against him? He's fascist. He's what? It's like, no, he's not. You don't really know what fascism is if you think Trump is fascist. People wouldn't be cursing him on the airwaves and at the Grammys if you lived in a fascist state. Those people would be tortured and killed, but they're not. So this is not a fascist state. But people, they speak out of ignorance, and they speak out of this through this filter, and they've condemned me for what? Selling my soul, for Donald Trump or for political power. And I think, no, I don't think so, because I have spoken against that idea. But, people get very opinionated. So I try not to get in arguments with people on that stuff. I think that I just pray the Lord would help them to see it. And I really think what we're going through now in the madness of this crazy administration, I think some people are waking up and seeing that, maybe, kind of mean tweets wasn't the worst thing in the world. But, I can't convince people.
So the choice that we have, and it's the choice that I've really, even being here to help Rob, because I come from a conservative stronghold in Idaho, as red as you can be. People had asked me through the 25 years of being there as the pastor, why aren't you political? I'm like, I'm preaching to the choir. These people in our community, even people that are non-Christians, have these conservative values. It's rural America. It's all these roots, and there was really no need, from my perspective. I couldn't up our red states thing, and so. But I come here, and I got slapped in the face with a whole new world in California, and I'm like, oh man, this is where the fight is. And if we don't engage, we just, like you said, there's really two choices. People disengage because it's too ugly, it's too messy, it's just terrible.
Yeah, that's called being selfish. I hate to say it, but like people are like, well, I don't want to lose my job or my friends. It's like, well, wait a minute. What about the people that are depending on you to speak up, to do the right thing, to vote the right way, to vote your values and to vote for them? I mean, if you care, I said earlier, about, a kid in an urban community, you're going to think carefully how you vote. You're going to say, what are the policies that are going to bless that kid, give that kid opportunities?
So the cowardice of many people that I've been shocked by that have stepped away from the fight or haven't spoken up or have joined this new woke ideology, even from Christendom, and leaping on the bandwagon. It really comes down to Jesus said, "Beware when all men speak well of you." And there's a point that we have to stand for truth, and everybody wants to be, young people want to be spoken well of. The young high schoolers that come out conservative, they emphatically say it would be easier to come out trans, gay, lesbian.
Totally. I mean, of course, this is the irony is
but
that
if they come out conservative, they're toast. Yeah. They're cut off.
Well, this is actually why we need community. In other words, I say to people, like, find people who are, really in love with Jesus. Find people who share your political values. Hang out with them and encourage each other. Don't put yourself, as a sheep among wolves, because you will get picked off. It just becomes too difficult to negotiate, and you don't need to spend your life arguing with your liberal friends. Don't argue. Let them think what they want, but you need to find a community that supports you, and you need to encourage other people in that community. We need to do that because people are being, as I said, you should only hang out with people who disagree with you enough so that you might be able to have some effect on them. Once they begin having an effect on you, now, it doesn't mean that we can't learn anything, but I'm saying you have to be careful because a lot of times people, it becomes emotional, and they're like, well, it's this emotional thing, and I was hanging out with some black people, and they had this attitude. It's like, look, there are people of every color that have every kind of opinion. So it's not about that. It's about what is right and true. And don't let somebody's emotion move you, because you can have an emotion that moves you in the right direction, you can have an emotion that moves you in the wrong direction. We've got to actually look at this stuff. And critical race theory and anything cultural Marxism, all this stuff, this is from the pit of hell. Like, this is not going to lead anybody in any good direction. And if you really care for the poor, you really care for people struggling with same-sex attraction, if you really love those people, you have an obligation to understand that simply agreeing with those ideologies is actually going to hurt those people. It may make those people like you temporarily, but if you really care about their souls and their lives, you have to do what is right. So there we are.
So people ask me, Rick, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so I say, well, each of us have a voice, and we have a sphere of influence.
Yeah.
The mom who hangs out at the park with 3 friends and their kids, they have a sphere. Just be a voice of love and truth, because Jesus, Paul tells us, the Ephesians, tell the truth in love. I'm going to speak the truth, and so whatever sphere of influence or platform God gives you, be an influence, be salt and light, because that's how it works.
Well, I say,
so what would you encourage?
I say a couple things. I say, first of all, because I'm a writer and because I have my radio program and the YouTube and all that stuff, part of how God uses me is as a way to encourage people. In other words, I say to people, tune into my show, not because it's my show, but because I talk to people that will give you perspectives and information that you're not really going to get very many other places. I mean, I've interviewed so many amazing people, and I know that those conversations are a powerful encouragement to the people who watch it. I mean, I know that. And so I put myself out there as a resource, and I say, look for me or sign up go to my website, which is ericmetaxas.com, and you'll just get these emails, and you can see, like, wow, he interviewed Lou Dobbs. What's Lou Dobbs doing? He interviewed Milo Yiannopoulos, who decided now he's going to be chaste. He is not going to pursue the same-sex lifestyle because he's now a Christian. That's crazy. That's amazing. I've interviewed these stunning people, these incredible things, and I know this is like a shot in the arm for people who watch it. So I say unapologetically, please read my books, please watch my show, because I do this obviously not for myself. I'm trying to get it out there. But beyond that, what I say to people is just what you said. You don't realize the voice you have. And just think of the power we have in our money. I'm not talking about giving away millions of dollars to get. Now, if you have the money to do it, you better give it for God's purposes, because we need it yesterday. This is not something for you to save for the future. We're in a war now. We need bullets now. We need food now, because we don't know if we're going to win this. We don't know if we're going to have a battle a year from now or 5 years from now. Like, everything's on the line now. But for people who don't have a lot of money, I would say that think of all the money you spend. Where do you spend it? Are you spending it in places that support your values? Or are you spending it in places, one of the things I say is like Mike Lindell has been such a heroic figure, and he's taken such a beating in the. He doesn't care. He's cheerful. He's full of Jesus. He's amazing.
He is amazing.
But when people attack him, Kohl's, Bed Bath & Beyond, these are stores. Kohl's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and a number of others. Costco. Yeah. They have canceled him, and my attitude is like, okay, if you want to play that game, I would say to every freedom-loving American, please write an email to that store and say, I am never going to shop in your store if you have this policy. This is un-American to cancel somebody like this. You don't have to agree with him, but for you not to carry stuff because you disapprove of him, that's unacceptable. And not only will I never shop in your store, I will tell all my friends never to shop in Kohl's or Bed Bath & Beyond or Costco, whatever. We're going to find another way, because if you choose to behave in that way, there will be a price. We need to make them pay the price. A lot of times conservatives or Christians say, like, well, I don't want to get involved in, but look, folks, if you give your money to a company that is using that money, that whatever you did, whatever you bought or whatever it is, they're using those profits to promote an agenda antithetical to everything you believe in. If it's possible, you should not spend money with them. And if it's possible to spend money with a Mike Lindell or whatever, support anything that is supporting you and what you stand for. And I say that to people. I mean, Mike Lindell is one of the sponsors on my program, so I said, everybody use the code Eric and go to Mike Lindell. But I say this not because I say this because I want people to know you can support people who are taking it on the chin. Mike Lindell, let's be honest. Every dollar he gets, okay, he is spending millions and millions to fight for the things many of us believe in. He's doing it.
I know he is.
So he's not taking that money and buying boats and stuff. I know him. And so I think to myself, if you buy a bunch of stuff from mypillow.com, the profits are not going to go to promote values that you hate. They're going to go to support stuff that you believe in. Like, we need to begin thinking this way. When Coca-Cola gets woke, people need to say, I'm going to never drink another Coke product or buy another Coke. If I can help it, I never will. I will find something else, and I will write an email. It's so easy. An email to the corporate thing, contact. Let them know. Don't be nasty, but let them know that because of your politics and because of doing this, not only am I not going to buy this stuff anymore, but I'm going to tell everyone I know not to buy it anymore. Yes. We have incredible power, and we need to use it.
We're not exercising.
Yes, and if you don't use that power, folks, it's on you. You're part of the problem. We've got to become activists, and sometimes you can only do it so much. But for goodness sake, do something. Do what you can. Yeah.
Do what you can.
Yeah.
I'm going to end this segment because I have to go write some emails to some companies.
Thank you.
Right after this. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. For more information, head over to vintagemccoy.com or follow us on Instagram @TheVintageMcCoy. We'll see you there.